We experience the war every day, the blast, the jets, the hits, barrages of rockets or drones all around us, and sometimes against us, like in our town as well. And it's not a peaceful, nice town that you used to live in.
One day after Hamas's October 7th massacre, Hezbollah opened a second front on Israel's northern border. The Iranian-backed terror group, far better trained and equipped than Hamas, has since launched thousands of rockets and drones into communities across northern Israel, forcing more than 80,000 Israelis from their homes. In a horrifying development, Hezbollah recently struck a soccer field in Majd al-Shams, an Israeli Druze community in the Golan Heights, killing 12 children and critically injuring dozens of others. Here today to talk about Hezbollah's war on Israel's north is Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zehavi. Lieutenant Colonel Zehavi has the Alma Research and Education Center, which focuses on Israel's northern border. As the head of Alma, she educates visiting groups, including members of Congress, on the threats posed to Israel from Lebanon and Syria. She's also a resident of northern Israel herself and a veteran of the IDF Intelligence Corps. Sarit, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I think for so many people who are watching this, they've met you, they've been briefed by you, or they've seen you speak at AIPAC events. You really are part of the broader AIPAC family. So we just want to start out by asking, how are you doing and how's your family doing?
This is difficult times. For us, the Galilee is our home. There is no question about it. We discussed this in the family. But it's difficult times because we witness the war every day. We experience the war every day, the blast, the jets, the hits, barrages of rockets or drones all around us, and sometimes against us, like in our town as well. And it's not a peaceful, nice town that you used to live in. And also we live the fear of what happened in October 7th may happen to us as well. This is something that kind of in the shadow all the time.
So when the news broke about what happened in Majd al-Shams, I think the images and the stories were absolutely horrifying. Can you tell us what happened there?
Hezbollah launched barrage of rockets, first Grads, which are like Katyusha rockets, and then Falak, which is a heavier rocket that it was only published in January that Hezbollah has this kind of rocket. It's Iranian manufactured. It weighed 50 kilograms, around 50 kilograms. And they claimed responsibility for the launching of these rockets, saying they targeted an army base on top of the Hermon mountain. Majd al-Shams is right below. So it's really difficult to intercept rockets from below the mountain. It's really difficult to intercept rockets that are heavier and flying lower. And that's why eventually Iron Dome missed that one. And it hit. It hit next to a shelter, next to the soccer field. There was a small bomb shelter there. But since people had like 9 seconds before the blast, when they heard the alerts, they didn't have time to get to the shelter.
So the day after October 7th, Hezbollah began its campaign of rocket and drone attacks on northern Israel. What were they trying to do and why?
Look, we don't know. At the first few days, Hezbollah attacked mainly, it started from anti-tank missiles and drones. These were accurate attacks, mainly against IDF positions. If you combine that with the announcements that came from Iran, we thought it's going to be another invasion. They threatened that if Israel will invade Gaza, remember it took 3 weeks, they will invade Israel from the north. And they said that also to their own base in Lebanon. So, like for me personally, I evacuated my kids when I saw what is happening on October 8th. And the invasion plan of Hezbollah was replicated by Hamas. Hezbollah was much more experienced, is much more experienced with the ground forces than Hamas because they fought in Syria. Eventually, they didn't do it. probably because the communities became empty. IDF went up north within a few days. Hamas was very successful. Hezbollah would be probably less successful if it comes after Hamas. And Hezbollah didn't want to be secondary after what Hamas had done. But the basic rationality of one day to send land forces, elite units to Israel to occupy communities, this is something that still exists, and I believe they will try, if they will be able, they will try to do it in the future.
While Israel's been fighting the war against Hamas in Gaza, I think most Israelis have been anticipating, the second war with Hezbollah. What would that conflict look like compared to what is happening right now in Gaza?
There will be destruction and there will be damages on both sides of the border. Since Hezbollah is using the Lebanese as human shields, just like Hamas, Hezbollah has a net of tunnels in Lebanon, maybe even worse than Hamas. It had, in opposed to Hamas, around 40 years to be prepared, like Hamas had done that in a decade, so imagine. It means that we'll have 4,000 rockets that can be launched by Hezbollah every day, at least for a few weeks. It means that much more people will be evacuated from their homes. And it means that there will be a lot of destruction on both sides of the border. What we will benefit if this will happen, and of course it's a lot of loss of life, but what will benefit is that we will be able to create an extreme damage, not elimination, but an extreme damage to Hezbollah military capabilities. If we will target the warehouses of Hezbollah, of the rockets, this could be a very good achievement, even though the price will be high.
So, like you mentioned, you're a resident of northern Israel. You have raised a family there. For those Israelis that are still living there and for those who have been displaced, what is life like right now for them? 80,000 people have had to leave.
Yeah, I myself was not evacuated. I live 9 kilometers from the border. So you can understand that the effects are on those who were evacuated. They live 0 to 5 kilometers from the border, and the effects it's also on those who were not evacuated. There are more and more attacks of Hezbollah in the areas that are not evacuated, and I believe in the next few days we'll see much more than that.
So deeper inside Israel.
Deeper inside Israel. And the feeling is very tough because it has been going on for 10 months and we don't understand how it's going to play out. Like, I don't have a good, prediction to tell you this is what is going to happen. We don't know what exactly is going to happen, how it's going to happen, what's the solution. If we analyze, every solution comes with a price. And at the same time, if we talk on the personal level, with the evacuated communities, these are 43 ghost towns. And these were very strong communities. The community relations were very important to these people. And once you evacuate them, so you see a process in 10 months of how community collapsed and then families collapse. And to recover that, it's going to take a long years.
And I am sure the effect on children who are growing up and having their lives disrupted in this way, we won't know for a long time.
I can only talk about my little girl that this week we sent her to a kind of a short summer school of a week. And she told me, before I came here, she told me, "Mommy, I'm so happy that I'm going away from this area to rest a little bit from this war zone." And it's difficult to hear it.
I'm sure it is. So Hezbollah is not just a threat to Israel or even just northern Israel. It's really a global threat. What should Americans know about the danger that Hezbollah poses to Americans broadly, outside of just the Israeli context?
This is a threat to all of Israel because Hezbollah's rockets can get to all of Israel. They have PGMs, precision-guided missiles, that can get to all of Israel. And they threatened in the past to use them against civilian and military infrastructures in Israel. But other than the capabilities, the military capabilities, we should talk about the ideology and the rationality. And here, what we miss is that the main goal here is to distribute the Islamic Revolution values. Two basic values that I want to mention. One is the loyalty to the supreme leader. According to this ideology, the supreme leader of Iran is a cleric, and everybody should go according to religious law. A very radical interpretation of the religious law by the Shiite Islam. That's one thing. The second thing is martyrdom. They cherish death while we cherish life. This is very important when we try to make a risk management or a containment or all these solutions that are being talked right now. The distribution of Islamic Revolution values means activity in the United States, means activity in Europe, means activity basically all over the world. It's a global threat. They are doing that on the military level while collaborating with China, North Korea, and Russia, Venezuela, taking advantage of failed state in the Middle East. And they are also doing that on civilian level while building educational infrastructures in different places of the world, and that way raising the next generation that will work on distribution of these Islamic Revolution values anywhere in the world.
Well, Sarit, I want to thank you so much for being with us today and taking the time to explain this very important issue that is changing by the minute.
Thank you very much for having me.
As Israel faces the threat of all-out war with Hezbollah, they will need America's support more than ever. Your voice can help. Text Israel to 24722 and urge your elected officials to publicly stand with Israel and support its right to protect its citizens from Hezbollah's terrorism. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.